Hello book lovers, and welcome back to the library. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Desiree. I love diving into books that challenge perspectives, spark conversations, and highlight marginalized voices. Another year in the dust, and with that comes yearly wrap-ups and reflections. There's so many platforms recently that I've seen doing yearly wrap-ups, aside from like Spotify, and Storygraph does their yearly wrap-ups too, but I saw YouTube doing a yearly wrap-up and I was like, this is new. I do have a bit of nostalgia for the old YouTube rewinds they used to do. Some, not all. Anyway, no surprise here, but I want to share with you my top 5 books of 2025. My goal for this year was to read 60 books, and I ended up reading 68. I know, thank you so much. As you can imagine, picking 5 books out of 68 books was not easy, but I picked these 5 books based off the lasting impact that they had on me, and out of these 5, I still think about them to this day. These are in no particular order, so let's get into it. First up, we have The Dead Cattail Assassins, which is a novella by P. Djeli Clark. I read this back in March, and again, I love this book so much. This is a novella about Aveen, who is a member of the Matron Assassins, who are assassins that are resurrected, they're deadly, and they're also wiped of their memories. And most importantly, they're sworn by 3 unbreakable vows. The first is that the contract must be just. The second is that you may only kill the contracted. And 3, once the job is accepted, it must be carried out. So imagine Aveen's surprise when the mark that she's contracted to kill is someone that she remembers, which shouldn't happen. She shouldn't be remembering anyone. So we essentially follow her on her journey as she tries to unravel the mystery of how she can remember this person while also staying true to the vows of the Matron Assassins. I made a video review of this on TikTok, and my thoughts pretty much remain the same. I think that P. Djeli Clark built a very comprehensive fantasy in just a couple hundred pages. I felt at home in the world with the characters. I wasn't bogged down with questioning how the world worked, where I was able to focus on the characters and the mystery and their journey. Speaking of mystery, the mystery was very interesting and I loved unraveling it alongside the characters. And Aveen is my favorite character by far. She's witty, she's nerdy, and she's a badass. Next up, we have The Scammer by Tiffany D. Jackson, which I read in December, and this was actually a gift from my friend Damara for a Secret Santa. Thank you. So The Scammer follows Jordan, who recently is a freshman at an HBCU in Washington, against her overprotective parents' wishes. But nonetheless, she's attending as a pre-law student. One of her new friends and dorm mates, brother, whose name is Devante, recently is released from jail. He needs a place to stay, and Jordan kind of feels bad. It's like, it's just a couple of days, so Devante makes himself very comfortable in their dorm suite. Devante is older, he's charming, and has this way of convincing people to do things to better their lives. But Jordan's kind of sussed by Devante, is kind of catching on to his antics when his number of students, or followers if you will, starts to grow. So when a student goes missing, Jordan has to enlist the help of the only white kid on campus to untangle the mystery behind the missing student and Devante's motives. So if you hadn't guessed from the synopsis, Devante's running a cult in the college dorm room. Things happen so fast in this book that I found myself in the middle of reading it thinking, there's no way this is happening this quickly. Like, there's no way they're falling for this quickly. But I had to take a second and think and realize that Devante was charming. Devante had a way of talking to the students that made them trust him. He was manipulating them. He was doing all the things a cult leader would do. And I should have known better than to question, why is this happening so quickly? There's no way they're falling for it, because I've seen so many cult documentaries, and this is textbook grooming and manipulation for exploitation. Not to mention, this is a perfect target demographic for Devante, because these are kids. I know they're legally adults because they're in college, but these are still kids to me. They're freshly independent, so they have this sense of, I can do things on my own, but there's also this level of naivete, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so you have this older man, Devante, who appears knowledgeable and trusting, and so they're gonna trust what he says, or at least hear him out. Honestly, like all Tiffany D. Jackson books, I think she does a great job of encompassing and showcasing real-world issues in a cohesive and easy to digest, sometimes, story. And it's honestly no different in The Scammer. We explore grooming, cults, emotional and financial manipulation. Let's see what else. Isolation from support systems, consent, bodily autonomy, being the token black girl, all the things. Some of my favorite conversations in this book are with Jordan and one of the professors at the college, specifically because Jordan comes to him talking about the things that Devante has been saying to the students and to her, and the professor responds that while some of these things that Devante were saying may be steeped in truth, he spun it in a way that makes them into conspiracy theories or just very toxic beliefs. And some of the things that Devante talks about are being Black in America, white supremacy, the atrocities that white Americans continue to inflict on Black Americans now and in the past. So with that, there's already this seed of, yeah, I do feel that way, or yeah, I have experienced this. So it would be easy for the students to come to the conclusion that Devante has so readily presented to them to accept. But as we see it play out in the book, these beliefs can turn very harmful. One thing I did have an issue with in this book specifically was, in the synopsis, it really emphasizes that, or it talks about how Jordan teams up with Nick, is his name, on trying to discover where the missing girls are. But when we're reading the book, the topic of the missing, not girls, missing students, sorry. The topic of the missing student doesn't really come up until like 80%, but then it really doesn't get resolved at the end. It's kind of just like swept under the rug. And I feel like this wasn't handled in a way that's typical for a Tiffany D. Jackson book. Other than that, great read. That twist at the end, unexpected. It made me revisit the entire book and really think about the story that was presented to me. Next up, we have Blood Slaves by Marcus Redmond. This came out in July, but I was able to read an arc of it before it came out, and I was very grateful. Amazing book. Especially coming off the hype of Sinners, which came out back in April. Blood Slaves was that nice piece of media that fed that hunger, right? That emptiness that was left from watching Sinners. So during chattel slavery in American history, Blood Slaves blend supernatural horror with exploration of resistance and justice. We follow Willie and his beloved Gertie as they live, suffer, and toil under the brutal thumb of their master. But when Willie meets Rafazi, an ancient vampire and lone survivor of the Romanga, an African vampire tribe, he's offered a dark hope that is an irresistible and blood-chilling path to liberation. As an army of blood slaves grow, Gertie sees no good can come from this. Willie is of the mindset that only evil can fight evil, and he's faced with an irreversible decision. Only one thing is certain on the Barrow Plantation and beyond: blood will spill. And so it did. Lots of it in this book. I'm gonna read my review that I put on socials because I think it's good and it still encapsulates my thoughts on the book. This story was captivating at every page turn and I couldn't put the book down. Marcus Redmond's writing is cinematic and immersive, and I felt the tension in every scene. Marcus also managed to capture the emotions and perspectives of every enslaved character so well I felt more connected with them as I went on this journey. I empathized with every enslaved character and loathed everyone who lived on and worked for the Barrow Plantation. The scariest aspect of Blood Slaves wasn't the vampires, it was the fact that this is rooted in American history. But it was so refreshing and thought-provoking when you beg the question, what if the enslaved were given an opportunity that would shift the balance? Marcus Redmond said it best: this is not a story about slavery, this is a story about a slave. To be honest, Black vampires and vampire stories are one of my favorite to experience. Fun fact about Marcus Redmond, he worked in Hollywood. Like, he worked on TV shows and movies, and so it really shines through in his writing. Makes sense why it's so cinematic and immersive and how I can visualize it on the big screen. Also, Book 2, Blood Rising, comes out in August of 2026. I'm so excited to see where the story goes. While we're on the topic of vampires, I do have an honorable mention in this list. I just finished it a couple days ago. Eternal Ruin by Tika Skirma. I'm still processing it, but what the heck was that ending? Girl, what was that ending? What was that cliffhanger? Okay, where's Book 3? You can't leave me hanging like that. Take your time, but also hurry up. With love, please and thank you. Book 4 is I, Medusa by Ayana Gray. I finished this in November. Can we just take a moment to admire this cover? It is so stinking gorgeous. So I, Medusa is Medusa's origin story, from maiden to mistress to monster to myth. So Meddy's entire life has felt out of place. She's felt out of place in her family as the only mortal in a family of immortals, and she really longs to live a life of adventure and leave her island. So when she's presented with the opportunity to study as a priestess of Athena, she jumps on it. So as she's training to be a priestess, she's doing great. She's really coming into her purpose. That is until Poseidon enters the picture and ruins it. When her locks are transformed into snakes as punishment of a crime she did not commit, Medusa must embrace her new identity, not as a victim, but as a vigilante, and with it, a chance to write her own story as a mortal, martyr, and myth. This book had me yelling at every single person in her life that failed her. Aside from a few people, but a lot of people failed her, and I understood her rage. It was justified, in my opinion. I did mention this in my Instagram review, but I think Ayana Gray did a great job of showcasing the societal response to rape victims, also showcasing the grooming process pretty well, and also the burden that victims are essentially forced to carry afterwards. Another thing I liked about this book was the hair love in this book. Medi and her sisters, her sisters specifically, really show their love for Medi by helping her take care of her locks. I, Medusa was a pretty quick read. It really focuses, like I said, her journey and her story, how she became this monster and myth that she is portrayed to be in Greek mythology. And Medusa was happy at times. Even after Athena cursed her, she really tried to live a life despite what happened to her. But it was also sad because there was this constant reminder, with the snakes on her head and what the snakes can do to other people. But also, she kind of uses this opportunity to her benefit because previously she was seemingly helpless, right? The only mortal in her family. She was committed for a crime that she didn't commit. So now that she has this opportunity to essentially be a vigilante, right? She's used it several times to help other women and girls who were taken advantage of, like her, like she was. I will leave you with my favorite quote from this book. "You are not a monster. You are only what they made you." My camera almost died on me. Okay. Alright, last book is Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because I just posted a non-spoiler review, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it in the description. But I read this back in March when it first came out, and Oathbound is the third installment in the Legendborn cycle. We pick up right after Bree has distanced herself from the Legendborn Order, and she's also severed her ancestral ties. And now she's made an unbreakable pact with the Shadow King. The Shadow King, by the way, is a shapeshifter who's navigating between the human world, the demon underworld, and also within the Legendborn Order. I said it before, and I'll say it again, Tracy Deonn continues to write an impeccable, fast-paced, well, not really fast-paced, appropriately paced YA fantasy book. One thing I loved about Oathbound is that it had multiple POVs, which Tracy Deonn swore she'd never do, but it just kind of developed that way, and I think that was a great decision. And it didn't take away from this being Brie Matthews' story. If anything, it lended to, or I guess added another layer, by seeing Brie's world through the eyes of the people that mattered to her most. I also resonated most with Brie's journey and Brie and Oathbound specifically more than the other ones, because there was one theme that I picked up on, weighing the pros and cons of self-isolating or being hyper-independent. While having some moments of solace or isolation can maybe have some introspective moments, when it becomes consistent, it can become toxic and overall detrimental to your well-being. And to kind of piggyback off of that, another theme that I picked up on was this notion that you don't have to fight your battles alone. So those are my top 5 of 2025. Honestly, 2025 was a pretty fun reading year for me. And I honestly look forward to exploring new books in 2026 or even revisiting old ones. I will be doing the Anti-Brainrot challenge created by Jananine at This Story Ain't Over. I'll link the video in the description if you're interested in learning more about the challenge. So this challenge essentially is to help you engage more critically and mindfully in the media you consume, from the books you read, the movies you watch, articles and blogs that you engage with. And I will say, there were some times when I'm reflecting on last year that I had mindlessly engaged in media. For example, I watch a lot of video essays on YouTube, and there would be times where I would either binge a bunch of video essays, or I'd watch just one and I could not tell you a lick about what it was about, or key points or themes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this challenge holds. I am considering doing monthly and or quarterly updates on here, so we'll see how I'm feeling. Stay tuned. If you made it to the end of this video, comment a star and your top read of 2025. Don't forget to like this video and grab yourself a library card by hitting that subscribe button on your way out, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Oh my god. Oh my god, isn't that? Last one and my camera's gonna die. Don't forget to hit, oh my god. gosh. Spit it out. And grab yourself a library cord.